Let's talk about the Maiden, the Underworld, and the rise of the mature feminine. I've spoken about this for years. I actually don't believe that we're just living through some weird political unrest or relationship breakdowns or identity crisis or even shifts in gender dynamics. It's deeper than that. It's more ancient than that. I believe we're ending an ancient story that has actually shaped women, men, families, institutions, and societies for centuries. And if we don't start to understand it, we're going to continue to mistake the symptom for the cause, right? And to understand this story, I want you to understand the maiden and that first wound. So when we think of the maiden energy, we imagine innocence. And I want to be clear here that innocence isn't weakness to me, right? The maiden represents possibility. She represents hope. She represents the part of us that's still becoming. And there is naivety in that, right? And so you've got this young feminine and she enters into the world and she's wide-eyed, she's seeking love, she's seeking belonging, she's seeking approval and safety. And yet for many women, the journey begins with a wound. She experiences violence, abuse, sexual violation. She is silent. She speaks truth and she's punished for it. She's rejected. She's, put aside by her family, her community, her church, culture, or peers for daring to become who she was destined to be. And so this is where the myth begins, right? So most people understand the mythical stories around the goddess, around the young maiden, and how she enters into the underworld. And every country across the globe carries their own version of this story, connected to the goddess. And she has many faces, she has many names, and the journey is always the same. She's usually radiant, young, full of beauty and power, and she provokes jealousy, possession, control. She's transformed against her will. She's exiled from herself or forced through repeated cycles of loss, separation, and forgetfulness before eventually reclaiming her rightful place and identity. Women know this journey. We experience the descent. We often lose ourselves in order to remember who we truly are. And so myth reminds us that the feminine journey is rarely about remaining innocent and often about becoming conscious of what lives within and around us. And so there's a part and piece to this that promises rescue. This is the place where I see the feminine get stuck and where the world can get stuck as a collective. So after the wound comes the rescue, the rescuer. And it's one of the most misunderstood archetypes in mythology and modern life. So at first the rescuer appears noble, protective, strong, steady, reliable, trustworthy, right? And so he enters into the maiden's life when she's frightened, disorientated, confused, seeking safety, an anchor. And so he offers her certainty where she feels confused, right? So she gets direction, and there's safety where she feels vulnerable. And often he genuinely believes he loves her, and she genuinely believes she loves him. But there's a shadow piece at play here, right? She's seeking to be rescued. He's seeking to rescue. He needs someone to save. He needs someone dependent. You can replace he with government, institution, community, right? Or man. Needs someone uncertain, needs someone smaller. And so his entire identity is built around being needed. Without her helplessness, who is he? Without her dependency, where does he get his importance from? And so this dynamic, it appears everywhere. It is everywhere. It's in romantic relationships, it's in marriages, it's in father-daughter dynamics, it's in institutions, it's in our governments, it's in spiritual communities, it is in healing spaces, right? It is everywhere. And so the rescuer is often saying the same thing, trust me. Rarely is the rescuer going, trust yourself, right? And so, the reason the age of the guru is dying, because the guru doesn't want you to trust yourself, it wants you to trust them above you. And so there's a moment where she begins to trust herself and the entire dynamic shifts. And so the rescuer's strength grows in direct proportion to the maiden's self-abandonment. And so for a time, both believe this is love in action, right? And then we meet the underworld, right? And this is where mythology becomes deeply psychological, right? So to understand something about the underworld, it is not hell. It is not punishment. This is where the initiation happens. This is where the path of devotion opens up. The underworld is the place we enter when our old identity can no longer survive. It's where the ego dissolves, where the illusions die, where false safety is exposed, where dependency becomes visible. And we can meet this underworld place over and over and over again, because it's here we must learn and meet and discover the cost of abandoning ourselves. That's what we meet. And so in mythology, we're aware that every great story is about the underworld and the rise up from that space. And so she enters that space, and in that space, this is where a lot of us can feel like we're failing at life, because the relationship falls apart, the job gets cancelled, the direction that our life path on suddenly doesn't feel right. And what's happening here is we're usually being prepared, because the underworld strips away who we thought we were. So it removes anything that we're not: borrowed identities, borrowed beliefs, borrowed authority, borrowed safety. Can you see how you can connect this to the world, the collective, personal relationship? You can see the interlink. And so the journey here matters, because without the descent, we can't actually arrive at sovereignty. And without the darkness, there's no discernment about what's right and what's wrong, about what impacts and what doesn't. And so we often lose ourselves to discover who we are. And so this underworld is where the maiden stops looking for someone to rescue her. And she begins recovering, restoring and reclaiming the places and spaces inside of herself that she abandoned in order to stay safe. And so the return of the queen starts to arrive. She starts to step into her throne, and it gets really uncomfortable here, because this is the place where women really begin to change. So the maiden is no longer a maiden. She has changed. She has developed self-trust, discernment, boundaries, authority, capacity. And in that space, she begins to hold herself. And suddenly the relationships that once felt stable and secure, they begin to shake. The foundations can't hold. And so this can look like the teenager rebelling against the father. And so she trusted him for decision, and suddenly now he's threatened by her independence and her own decision making. The husband who felt secure when his wife was dependent upon him and uncomfortable when she develops her own independence. The leader who was adored, providing answers for struggles when suddenly the people around him start asking questions. Or the teacher who enjoyed being followed struggles when the students become peers. And this is not a story about men are bad and women are right. And if that's what you've picked up from this story, then you're not really listening. This is a story that relates to every relationship that is organized around dependency, because once it experiences sovereignty, it will be disrupted. And that's what we're witnessing collectively right now. We're witnessing women entering leadership, questioning the inherited narratives. We're redefining motherhood, fatherhood, spirituality, success, life, partnership. There isn't a place or space upon the planet right now that has not been redefined, reevaluated, restored in some way. And at the same time, we're witnessing all of this increased polarization, conflict, control, power struggles, aggression, violence, anger, fear, because all of that must erupt. That's the rubble. It's what's hidden beneath all of these old structures that are holding everything so tightly together. And so all of these old myths are the resistance, right? And so the dragon is thrashing about, and humanity thinks it's failing right now, but humanity isn't failing. We're transforming. And we can be conscious or not conscious of that, but we are transforming. And I guess why this story matters to me and why I'm coming to this place is because for the past 17 years, I've actually believed my work was about healing. It was about supporting women, teaching energy work, holding transformational spaces, and guiding women back to themselves. And all of that is true. And I now can see a deeper red thread running through everything I've ever created, every word I've ever written, every journey that I went on, every initiation I've experienced. I have never really been teaching women how to heal. I've been teaching women how to hold themselves, how to trust themselves, how to develop their own inner authority, how to stop outsourcing their wisdom. and how to stop searching for someone else to rescue them. How to remember the strength that they've always been carrying. And so what I'm witnessing and experiencing and meeting right now, it feels so different. The conversations are different, the women are different, I'm different, the world is different. We have energetically moved up into something different. We're not just talking about healing wounds anymore. We're talking about maturing. We're talking about growing up. There is a spiritual leveling up, and it looks like a crumbling. There is a rise of mature feminine, and it looks like chaos. Women are moving from maiden consciousness into sovereign womanhood, and it's far from perfect, it's far from complete, it's far from finished. It is definitely challenging. It's challenging everybody to the very core of our existence. And what I'm seeing very clearly is no one is, we're not willing to abandon ourselves anymore to belong. And so we're becoming the woman who holds herself. And it is why I felt intuitively guided to create the woman who holds herself, because she must come first. Before you can hold a business, a family, a relationship with anybody, your clients, community, greater responsibility, impact, whatever it is that you're seeking to hold, first you must learn to hold yourself. And it's, we don't become stronger through force. And I think a lot of the last few decades have been trying to force something that's not ready. This is about becoming steadier through truth. It's about developing the capacity to remain connected to ourselves when the old patterns, the old relationships, the old dynamics, the old governments try to call us back, the old rescuer, the approval, the belonging, and when the fear gets loud. And this is the threshold I believe many women are standing on. I believe it's a threshold humanity is standing on. And we're not asking anymore who's going to save me. We're not looking for the government to save us. We're not looking for the man to save us. We're not looking for the institute to save us. We're asking ourselves, can I trust myself enough to become who I already am and who I've always been? And so the real story of the feminine rising, the real story of the mature feminine, has never been about a woman waiting to be rescued. Although we've been told that story our whole lives, that we needed to be rescued. What's really happening is there's a story unfolding about women where we're remembering that we were never powerless to begin with.